Okay. All right, guys. Welcome to another episode of Sales Manager Academy. As always, I'm Omar, your host here. How's it going? Uh, got a couple of cameras if you're wondering why, like I keep changing the view. Uh, but today, one of the biggest things I want to talk about is, as always, right? We're always talking about sales psychology, leadership psychology, best practices, and that covers a lot of things, right? We've talked about the hiring process, the interview process. We've talked about, the reason why we want to train and develop individuals. It's not just about finding people, hiring them, and then, you're done. Um, Unless you're hiring like the first person who's going to be your salesperson and they have to figure everything out for the company, there's a lot that you're going to go through, right? Because you still have to develop your SOPs, all your procedures that you're going to use, right? Standards of operations. Um, And you have to have something in mind. You're never going to write everything down. Things are going to pop up, and you're going to be like, that's actually a great idea. What should we do next? Should we incorporate that? And SOPs, I think a lot of people don't realize all the guides, the standards that you guys have. They're living documents. They're living, breathing documents, meaning that they're going to change over time. It's one of those where you can't expect this to be written in stone and that's it. It's never going to change. It's never going to adapt, especially if you're a leader, especially if you're in any type of sales organization, let alone anything having to do with technology, where technology changes so fast. I remember when I first started with AT&T a very long time ago, they had told us, and this is something that we went through training. And they're like, yeah, it's going to get to a point where you guys are going to all get replaced by tables. Person's going to be able to come in, grab their phone, just put it on the table, and it's going to ask them everything that they want, meaning that we're going to be redundant. And I was like, well, that's a great way to motivate your salespeople, first off. Uh, but what happened is, even though we look as though we're going to be moving in that direction where technology is going to be replacing people, it's really not. People still want to ask questions and speak to other people. They still want to have some kind of developed relationship, essentially. I have a motto, and it's people hate to buy, but they love to be sold. And I think everybody gets that wrong because everybody's like, people hate to be sold, they love to buy. And that's not the case. Um, think about it yourself, right? When's the last time that you just bought something to buy something um, instead of being sold to buy it? And sold doesn't mean that you were sold by a person. You could have sold yourself on why you wanted to buy it. You could have sold yourself on, the reason why it'd be a great thing to have right now or a great item to purchase, or this is the reason why I wanted this food and it was really good, as opposed to I bought it because it was the only thing there and I completely hated the way it tasted, or it's just not what I want. People absolutely do not love to buy. They love to be sold because being sold means a lot of different things. You're talking about how I interact with others. You're talking about what this means to me, the perceived knowledge or perceived authority or perceived respect or perceived whatever that this is going to give me with other people. That's the big thing that a lot of people don't always get. People love to be sold, they hate to buy. And that's one of the things I always taught my teams because I got them out of their mindset, the old mindset that they would carry of, man, people hate to be sold. I don't want to be a seller. I don't want to make people think I'm making them buy something. At the end of the day, you're not forcing anybody to buy something, right? If you do, you get a lot of chargebacks, you get a lot of disgruntled customers, a lot of bad reviews. You want to help people, you're consulting, you're advising. You want people to make a decision based on what they want to do, based on what's a fit for them. And that's where we want to go, right? And being a leader means that you're helping people see that when you have new people in your industry, and whether they're brand new to sales or whether they're transitioning from a different sales industry to your industry, um, there's a lot of limiting beliefs that you need to break. There's a lot of things that are the same and a lot of things that are different. Our job is to find out where we can align to be able to best pivot to make sure that we're getting on the same page with everything. And that's the hard part sometimes. It's very difficult for people to truly understand where I'm coming from, where we're we're meeting where we're supposed to be able to go from there because they think, okay, I brought you on board. You have sales background. That's it. I don't have to do anything else with you. You figure it out on your own. That's like great and dandy. It's not repeatable. That is not a system. That is not what we want to do. We want to help people train and develop. As a leader, that's your goal. That is what you want to do. That is your focus. You are there to make sure that your team is as successful as they can be. And you can't do that if you're constantly berating your team, if you're not giving them the support that they need, right? At the end of the day, it comes down to being supportive. It comes down to being a guide and mentor. And that means that we're not always going to be their best friend, right? We're not always going to give them the answer to the problem that they have because they do have to figure it out, right? I've talked about the not just the psychology, but also the science of being able to build those new neuron connections in the brain. And a lot of that is through trial and error, repeating it, and learning my path forward. Because you can teach the same thing to a group of people, to five different people, and they'll take five different things away from it. And each time that you go over it, they're going to take something different. Sometimes they'll be able to take and eventually align on some things, but everybody's going to perceive that information differently, and they're going to try that information different themselves than anybody else, right? And that's the beautiful part. That also means that as leaders, we have to be adaptable. We have to change our methods. We have to be able to help our people where they're at, as opposed to trying to get them to only listen through this one form of communication or this one model of communication or this one type of leadership or this one type of coaching. That is why I'm a big fan of frameworks. I believe frameworks are the best thing because they're not rigid, they're adaptable in real time where you understand I have set things that we have to get through, but because of different frameworks, because of the way people perceive information, be the way that they digest information, the way that they interpret information is different. Your framework allows you to be very adaptable to that so that you can help others get and retain as much of the information as possible. That's what it means. That's where we want to come from. That's what we want to become as leaders to get to that point where we're able to help more people. Uh, and ultimately, you know, your goal as a leader is being successful, or you're being successful as a leader when they're teaching other people a lot of the skills that you taught them. They're because they feel confident and they feel that they have information that they can assist others in, and that's what they want to do because they're enjoying what they're doing. It doesn't mean that they're always going to make a career out of it, and that's fine, right? We've said this. People don't always have to make a career out of things. If they enjoy what they're doing, they're going to enjoy what they're doing. And that's that, right? That's cool. Let them enjoy what they're doing. They don't always have to move up to a leadership role. Maybe they're comfortable making what they're doing right there. I know I used to have a manager that I had talked to because he'd been with the company that we were with for a while into moving into a DM role, right? Because he had been a leader for a while. He was a seller. He had been a leader for a while. And I told him, I was like, there's a lot of opportunity. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of opportunity in our territory right now because obviously I had just become the DM and there are other established DMs in the areas. And I was like, but there's really good opportunities. Just going to entail probably relocating. So if you're open to that, he's like, that's the one thing I'm not. I got three kids. They're all in school. All our family's here. I was like, I get it. It's a tough thing for you to want to do when your family is so set on certain things. And it's the hard part, right? I believe that we shouldn't force employees, people that work for the company to make changes at the risk of their family. Because at that point, they end up becoming disgruntled employees and they end up wanting to leave because maybe they want to come back or they're going to take a step down or their mind's not really focused on everything that needs to be focused on. So that causes really more issues than anything. Um, Maybe if they're super young, they're not really in school, or maybe they don't have a lot of family in the area, right? Like me, most of my family's back home in California. I live in Texas. Uh, I would be a candidate to essentially move a little bit more than maybe some other people, but that's perfectly fine. Not everybody's like that. But when it comes to coaching and developing, you have to understand where people are at to really see who's going to be the best at certain categories, how you can be able to set up your roster for different change, right? He was one of the guys that I would lean on whenever I would go on vacation. I would split my district in two, and he would take one half, and then the other manager would take the other half. And I would tell them, like, hey, you guys are responsible for these. These are my expectations. If you guys absolutely have any questions, I mean, obviously, yes, call me, reach out to me. Uh, Here's the regional director. Here are my peers, right? Um, if you feel it's super necessary for me to reach out to me, yes, I'll be available. Make sure our managers reach out to you before they reach out to me for anything. But you guys have access to all the other resources. I want you to become, get comfortable with them. The reason is when my leadership sees that I'm putting other people in place to take over for me when I'm on vacation, they're getting more communication with those individuals. So they're able to spend a little bit more time and get to know them so that they get more face time, they get more recognition. Same thing with the other peers. They can see, okay, maybe I'll have a really great opportunity and I want to bring this person on board. Maybe that, my peer, that DM gets a promotion and they end up becoming a regional and they're thinking of people that they would feel comfortable reaching out to about opportunities. It's about expanding your team's presence within the organization, not just you, right? When you lift others up and you bring others up to the organization, through the organization, there's a lot that happens. There's a lot more recognition. That's what you want to do as a leader. You don't want to get stuck in, I'm the leader, I'm the face of my team, and that's it. Nobody else gets seen but me. That's where we don't want to be at. We want everybody to get recognition. We want them to essentially be taken care of because they're going to take care of us. And you do that by developing them. You do that by training them. And oftentimes, sometimes development means that they're going to be in a situation they may not always want to be in or they're not comfortable in because they haven't mastered it yet. But that's a part of development. There is no one thing that says that you're a master of anything, right? You'll never be a master, in my opinion, of leadership. You're a student of leadership because it changes so much. There's new findings, there's new methods of teaching, of learning, right? Of seeing things from a different perspective, a different lens that makes it such, I'm not going to say difficult to master, but it's so vast that the way that you perceive information, the way that you digest information, the way that you regurgitate the information to others changes. It evolves. It's like the SOPs I was talking about at the beginning. They're a living, breathing document. They're going to change and evolve with time. That's what needs to happen with all leadership. If you have the same leadership in the same place for eons and there's no change, it does limit the growth of the organization as well as the growth of all the people in the organization. Uh, there's a book, here we go, Driving Loyalty, right? It's actually a really nice book. The guy ended up interviewing Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I have quite a few fraternity brothers that went through the Enterprise program. Uh, I interviewed through them as well. I decided not to move forward with them. Uh, but I the way the model works is amazing in my opinion. Uh, because the way the company works, they make everybody go through the front, right? Everybody's got to start at the beginning. You're working at a branch. Doesn't matter what position you take with the company. Doesn't matter if you're legal. Doesn't matter if you're HR. Doesn't matter. You have to start at the branch level because you need to get understanding of what the organization's about, right? It's not like you're going to be there for years. You're going to be there for a little bit of time before you get moved into your role. But this way you have an understanding of what the front line needs. So there's no back and forth. There's no infighting of like, no, you don't get it because you're not from the front. Um, it's something I wholeheartedly believe, especially when it comes to things like recruiting, hiring. If you have a team that handles that, but they've never worked the front end of the company, right? What's important as far as bringing customers in, bringing revenue in, but they're responsible for hiring the people that do this, there's a lot of disconnect, in my opinion. I'm not saying that they're bad for the organization. I'm saying that they don't understand what truly is needed and oftentimes can set the company back because there's going to be a lot of disgruntled managers on the front, and a lot of field leaders in the front that understand that now I'm going to have to work even harder to get these people up to par. And it's because they don't understand where we're coming from. They don't understand the true needs that we have. But in Driving Loyalty, he talks about that. And that's not the only thing I enjoyed about that book, and what he talked about with enterprise. The other part that he talked about was the fact that they rotate leadership. The way that the organization and enterprise sees it is that if you're in a leadership role for too long, there is something wrong, right? Why are you not promoted? Why are you not being promoted? Are you not promotable? So they force you to move up through the organization to be able to share your experience and be able to see different facets of the organization. And if you're not moving up, they're going to move you out of the organization. They want fresh blood in those leadership roles so that they can continue to evolve with the times. And then when you get to a senior level position, they essentially transition you out of the organization into a consulting organization, into your own consulting company, right? So they don't like just throw you out after you've been with them for, X amount of years and you're done. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, guys. This is what I took from the book, right? Uh, and then they transition you out from there into a consulting company. So if you've made your career at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, ultimately you end up leaving being a consultant. And you consult for the organization, so they keep you on payroll for a little bit as you start growing and gaining your clients. But that way you have something outside of the organization when you leave. But that allows for growth through the organization so that there is fresh blood. There is new minds, fresh eyes that are coming in to better serve the organization. And if you're not comfortable, if you just don't want to be with the organization, obviously, you move up or you move out, and that's what they do. Now, I've said it before, right? Maybe people don't want to grow within the organization to a different leadership role. There's nothing wrong with that. There's also nothing wrong with the organization if that's not their culture. And that's something that they've developed where that's not essentially their culture, especially when it comes to like their leadership roles, their branch manager or branch positions. They have this whole system in place. So I found that pretty interesting where that's what they do. But on the flip side, you have a lot of other companies that refuse to allow fresh minds in, fresh eyes, a new spirit to come in because they want to keep things the same. And one thing that you'll learn, especially in leadership, is that change is constant. If you're not bringing in new blood, new minds, fresh eyes, right? A different perspective than what we've done things in the past, you're literally going to be hindering yourself. When it comes to you as a field leader, it's the same thing. You want to be able to see how you can not only adapt to change, but also help bring change within your team. Because not everything is going to continue to work, right? Everything is cyclical. Maybe something is going to work now, but it's not going to work next quarter or next season. So we have to change things up. It's the reason why promotions change. If the same promotion worked all the time, it wouldn't be a promotion because you'd be keeping it at that same price. So what do? You stop the promotion and then you bring either that same promotion back or something slightly different. But that's what happens. Okay. Um, and that's where growth can occur. So as a leader, you have to remember change is going to always exist. It's a constant. We talked about this at the beginning with SOPs being a living, breathing document. If those SOPs don't change, right, there's something wrong. And this is just a side note on SOPs because I've seen so many that are just terrible uh, at being updated. When you update an SOP and there's a new SOP that's replacing it, if you're retaining the SOP in your database, on the document itself, make sure you're referencing the new SOP that's replacing it, not just on the page where it's being housed. Because if y'all don't know, in a lot of companies, especially when you have search engines, when the SOPs pop up, they people don't go to the actual page it's housed on, and they'll just click on the PDF file that'll pop it up. So if it's a new employee and they don't know that there's another SOP that replaced it, and they're visiting the SOP that's still housed in your database, some things are going to happen and y'all are not going to be happy about it. So make sure if you're updating SOPs that you reference the update. It doesn't matter where. I would say make sure it's on the front page or the first page, um, that, hey, this is no longer valid. This is here for archiving purposes or whatever, right? This is the new update. This is a new SOP that we're going to be moving to. So reference this new SOP. This is the link. Click it, right? Um, so that's what I would recommend. Okay. So that's just a best practice. I only say that because, yes, I've even been part of multi-million dollar companies. I'm sorry, multi-billion dollar organizations. Um, and they still have that same issue where, oh, well, I pulled up the SOP. Oh, that wasn't the right SOP. That was an old SOP that's no longer valid. This is the new SOP. Did you guys check this? Well, yeah, it's a very beautiful thing to go through, right? Because then it causes unnecessary, back and forth heartache, and most importantly, a really bad customer experience. Uh, so it comes down to the customer experience. Are they going to be happy? Are they going to want to come back and do business with us? Uh, so that's what, once again, what I would recommend on the SOP side. Just make sure you reference it on the actual document. Obviously, you can reference it on the page that document's being housed on. But if you do it on the document, it just makes everybody's life so much easier. And it's not like it takes forever to update the document because you guys have it on the back end as a doc, Word document, whatever you guys have in before it becomes a PDF, or you should anyway, right? Always keep an editable copy and then the PDF version, because the editable copy is what the new PDFs come off of, right? Because that's where you make your changes. So before you change it, hey, just boom. And you shouldn't just re-erase and record over it. Obviously, save the document as a new document with the new date or whatever update version it is. Okay. Something as simple as that makes a huge difference. You would be surprised. You would be very, very surprised. Simple is always best. Don't overcomplicate things because then that causes unnecessary heartache for everybody. Uh, and that's where, once again, being living, breathing documents is super important. Um, you're going to adapt your leadership style, the way that your teams that you bring in adapt to new information is the same but different. Okay. It's in cycles. I get it. Things are always going to be the same, but things are always going to change. And it's finding where you can make that connection that is going to be very, very huge for people. That's where, as a leader, you're going to start to understand certain characteristics of people, certain personality traits. So you'll know from your frameworks that, okay, this is probably going to be a better approach for this individual or this group of people or this team dynamic for me to approach this, right? KPIs are down for this particular one. I'm not going to come in, be rating everybody, hey, our, attach rate for internet is down. Why the hell are you guys not getting it? Blah, 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 blah. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do hey, your guys's, premium isn't up. Like, we got to get after it because if not, everybody's commission's going to go down. That's not a way to do it, right? That's not motivating. That's demotivating. You're putting an unnecessary pressure instead of helping them move forward. It's kind of like being at game day and you guys are down going into the second half. You can either berate them or, you know what? We sucked, right? We took a beating, but we're not out. We're still in. The second half that we're going in, let's get after it. On a side note with that, if you guys aren't familiar or don't know this, um, you guys can thank Adam Ruins Everything. If you guys haven't seen the show, it's a great show. But statistically speaking, in sports, the team that goes into the second half as the underdog normally wins. It's like a 51% chance. So more than 50. right? A 51% chance that the team going into the second half of the game is actually going to be the winner. Okay. Uh, so that's like one of those weird statistics. So it's the same thing with your teams, right? You can use that statistic to kind of lift their spirits, like, hey, we still got time. We can turn it around. Uh, we got to have a game plan. Can't just say we're going to turn it around, rah, 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 we're done. No, we're going to turn it around. And this is the best way forward, right? Suggestions. Open up the floor, make sure that your team has some input in what's going on, what's saying, what the saying is going to happen. Because if we don't allow them to voice their, and I'm not saying concerns, right? Don't be, this isn't a pity party. Like, let's be constructive. Let's voice our opinion on what we believe is going to work forward. You want them to offer their suggestions because you never know when that one person's like, hey, you know what? It's, I started doing this and I've been seeing, I know I'm not at goal yet or trending goal, but since I started doing this, I've noticed I've had more of a, uptake on the take rates. It's like, okay, um, it could be something simple. It could be the way they're phrasing it. It could be when they're presenting it, when they're positioning it. Something as simple as that, okay, makes a huge, huge difference in how we can take that information and how we allow them to offer suggestions. And those suggestions, I want them, that allows them to one, feel heard and feel seen, right? And then it allows them to be helpful to other people, especially people that they work with, because they, in a sense, almost want that praise. And I don't care what you say, everybody loves praise. We might just take it in differently in the way that we want it, but everybody loves to be praised in their own way. And allowing them to offer their suggestions, to open up and speak up, allows them to share what otherwise may not have been found. That could be the reason why you end up at 120% to goal as opposed to 101% to goal. And if you know how bonuses work, that's a big difference. That's where we want to go. That's where we want to be at. That's what we want to be able to do as leaders. That's why facilitating change is so important. And that's why allowing our team to also have a voice in what we do and how things are done is important. Because if we don't, we shut them down. We tell them that they don't matter. We tell them that their participation doesn't mean anything, and they won't participate. And numbers will be far worse. People are not machines, they're not cogs. Treat them as living, breathing people. And you'd be surprised how well a team grows, how well individuals develop, and how much can be accomplished when you take that leadership role and you accept change as part of what we do as an everyday facet and you help your team facilitate that. Everybody's scared of change. Even if I'll say this, right? Change is constant, except that change is always going to happen. I still get scared of change. I just don't let it stop me from doing things. And that's where we want our people to be at as well. And it takes time. They're not going to come in from one day to the next and be like, okay, change is constant. I accept change no matter what. I'm going to be okay with change. No, it's like, it's okay because it's a little back and forth. They maybe haven't had somebody that taught them that helped them reach that. And that's the hard part. But it's okay. It's all right. We help them get there and we give them that confidence to be able to take those first steps themselves. And then they learn how to run themselves. And that's what we want to do. That's what we want to help with. So, guys, that was that's it for today. Thank you all for joining in. Love sharing the information. If you guys have any questions, comments, anything that you guys would love to touch base on when it comes to leadership, training, development, um, any of that information, I mean, feel free, send me a DM, post a comment, But always remember, hit the like and follow button. That way you guys always get these and you don't miss any of the lives, any of the podcast. We'll take it from there. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for stepping in, and I'll catch you on the next one.